country's most divisive issues right at the forefront. In a middle-of-the-night ruling, the court declined to block the strictest anti-abortion law that this nation has seen since Roe versus Wade. The Texas law now bans abortions after a heartbeat is detected, which is usually about 6 weeks and often before a woman knows she is pregnant. Former President Donald Trump is now weighing in.
We do have a Supreme Court that's a lot different than it was before. It was acting very strangely, and I think probably not in the interests of our country. I'm studying it right now. I know that the ruling was very complex and also probably temporary. I think other things will happen, and that will be the big deal in the big picture.
With me now is USA Today columnist and CNN senior political commentator Kirsten Powers, and Alice Stewart, Republican strategist and CNN political commentator. Ladies, great to have both of you on. Thanks so much. Kirsten, is Trump right that this may just be temporary?
I don't see any reason to see this as being temporary. I mean, this seems to be part of a strategy for Republicans, and you see other states saying that they want to emulate what's happening in Texas. So I don't have any reason to believe that it's temporary. And frankly, even if it was temporary, it would still be a major problem. This is immediately impacting people who, as we know, this law doesn't even have an exception for rape or incest, for example. So a person who has been molested and impregnated by their father can't get an abortion, once there's a fetal heartbeat, which is essentially, if we're at 6 weeks, we're talking a couple weeks after you even find out that you're pregnant. So whether it was temporary or not, it would still be egregious.
And Alice, a new NBC News poll found that 54%, or I should say this poll was in August, 54% of Americans feel abortion should always be legal or should be legal most of the time. Conservative commentator Bill Kristol argues that this Texas law is actually a setback for the anti-abortion movement because it goes too far. We've heard that from several people that what they've done in Texas may have inadvertently hurt their cause. What do you think? I know your position on this issue is pretty clear.
It is. I'm unapologetically pro-life. I support life from conception to natural death. But I think there are some concerns with the Texas law with regard to not having, I think there should be exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. And this Texas law with the component of aiding and abetting, going after people that actually help people to get an abortion, I think that's going to be a concern. But I think the bigger picture, stepping back as to what Donald Trump said, the life issue is a huge motivator for voters. And right now, state legislators across the country are run by Republicans, and they are able to make inroads with regard to important policies. If we cannot overturn Roe v. Wade, which is what a lot of pro-life voters want, state by state, issue by issue, we can make progress and make steps forward on supporting life. And that's the key thing, is supporting life and making sure that there are opportunities and options and choices for women to choose life as opposed to abortion.
And not to litigate the whole issue, but to get back to this, what's been called a bounty system or vigilante system down in Texas, Alice, isn't there also an issue for Republicans in that, I mean, this smacks of like an authoritarian Orwellian Big Brother state with neighbors snitching on neighbors. It sounds like something you would see in communist China or Cuba or something like that. I mean, doesn't that turn off Republicans? I would imagine it does. There
are a lot of people that do have issue with that aspect of this Texas law, but that is something that they fought really hard for, and they believe, the Texas legislators believe, they have all the legal aspects of this addressed, and it will be able to be enforced. I think it's going to be tremendously difficult, and it takes away from the more important issue, which is pro-life. And look, Democrats are going to focus on that, understandably. They're going to focus on the big picture of abortion nationally, but I think they do so at their own peril, because the pro-life issue motivates Republican voters much more than the abortion issue motivates Democrats. And so if they want to make this a national issue and focus on that, I think it's going to be a winning formula for Republicans.
Kirsten, do you agree with that?
I don't. I actually think that there have been surveys that show that that you have people who are pro-abortion rights are very activated, especially in such an extreme case where they, where Roe has been effectively overturned by the state of Texas, where they are in clear violation of what is the settled law of the land. And even if you don't believe it's settled forever, it is the law of the land right now. And they have found a way to circumvent what is the law of the land. And that will be extremely activating to Democratic voters. And I think that, Alice very well, and I think she is sincerely pro-life, but Greg Abbott in Texas he's anti-abortion. I would never say he's pro-life if you look at what he's doing in terms of protecting people from COVID, for example, where he's trying to even keep schools from having mask mandates. This is not a person who is trying to save people's lives who are actually dying, and it is affecting children. And you have hospitalizations in Texas through the roof of children because of COVID. And instead, he's signed a law that was designed to evade the law. That's exactly why they did it the way that they did it. That's why they have the bounties. It's specifically done that way so that you can't name people who are state representatives who can be sued. So, it's just interesting that the Law and Order Party is behaving in such a lawless manner.
All right, Kirsten Powers, Alice Stewart, thanks so much. This conversation is to be continued. We appreciate it. Coming up, a future Hall of Famer reveals his bout with COVID and makes a prediction about how the virus will impact